bringing puppets to life.
As a puppet maker and a performer yourself, when you're fashioning raw material into a puppet, what makes it come alive and become part of the human drama?
Well, you're right, because it is just a pile of sticks and bits and pieces of fabric and paint. I think the minute a human being actually touches it when it's a figure, that process humanizes the object itself. And there's so many, like the Punch and Judy, it's some of the, you know, in intense traditions of hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. Because these have been going on, when you think about it, since the classic Greek theater. I mean, using these kinds of characters. You know, somebody said, how do puppets start? And I said, well, we're sitting around a fire, and I'm the shaman, and I'm telling you how yesterday I encountered, and I pick up this creature, right? Okay, puppetry starts.
What was it like to go from a small production like Punch and Judy to working with Jim Henson at the Creature Shop and on large theatrical productions like The Dark Crystal?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it was a severe shock. But there's an enormous amount of synchronicity, in a Jungian sense, going on with that whole thing, because I had used Brian Froud's book on fairies that became the most popular book of its type at the time. And I had used that book for reference for the puppets I had built that were in the back seat of my car when Roger Miller saw them and gave me the introduction to Jim Henson. I didn't come back for 4 years.
Wow.
It's very funny because you walk through the studio doors or even come past the gate, your total experience, life experience changes. And it's for that day, right?
Yeah.
Then you go home and you have your dinner and sit there and have a drink and try to come down.
Yeah.
And it because you've just spent 12 to 14 hours inside this rarefied atmosphere of pressure, pressure, pressure. And when you realize that if for some reason your whatever it is isn't working the way it should be, you've just cost the production, in the case of Dark Crystal, about $80,000.
What was your role in a production that size as a storyteller?
I was a puppet builder, so that put me in touch with, you know, all the puppeteers, from Davy Gulls to Frank Oz to, you know, whoever, and trying to build the Skeksis to a level that they would be usable and, what can I say, agreeable, that they weren't drawing blood on the puppeteer, which is always something sharp sticking you in the whatever. And so when the puppet was in a performance state, then it would go to a stage for a test shot to see if it was going to be working, and sort of building up to that grand moment. It was, you know, a spectacular way to come into the industry.
What is it like seeing your puppets, your creations, in those scenarios, the situations?
It was great. It was like having your daughter or son, sort of. Look, I did that.
What was it like to work with this team of artists and with Jim Henson?
Probably the most dynamic single situation. I'd been working with artists from the time I was teaching at the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, and where I was just working with a wall of talent, from T.C. Cannon to, you know, just you name them, just one genius after another. And there I was in London with the same situation. Jim was probably the finest manager of artistic talent that I've ever experienced.
Interesting.
He tuned. It was like ultimately like a well-tuned musical instrument that just produced what he needed to get done, what he needed to get done. But
What kind of person was he? What was he like?
he was very available. He was usually came into the shop at least once a week, sometimes more. David Odell, who was the writer, was living in Jim's apartment or house just across the road from where our shop was. And so he was over there. So we had the writer, we had Jim, we had Ozzie Morris was, you know, the quintessential cameraman. What can I say? It hummed at every level.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it. Sounds amazing.
You couldn't get away from it. I mean,
Yeah.
Even in the shop, almost every day, every second day, somebody was coming in with a new material to test, to try, a new tool. We had introduced the Disney term animatronics to the English trade at that point. The only reason I could have been there, or many of the other people. It's hard to say. It was like a tsunami of emotional effect at every level of your body.
Why is it important to tell these stories that you bring to life through the art of puppetry, these kind of archetypes that we see?
Well, it's a good term. I mean, Punch and the characters in his family are in fact all archetypes. It fills out an area of the psyche, I believe, that isn't readily available otherwise. It's a dark side of not only life, but of psychology. It's a shadow side. And
wait, weren't these the puppet shows that you, like children in France would go see these every day?
Cannon did.
Wow.
For centuries, literally. And when you look at the behavior, you think, this is a human behavior, and we've sort of been not wanting to look at it. Yeah? So in the, what do you want to call it, the chemistry of the psyche, I believe that it becomes Punch particularly because he's such a warped, twisted, malformed creature himself. All of a sudden the psyche is free to deal with those aspects of its own twisted nature. And it's, I think it's, he's a valuable guy.
What do you hope to achieve with your work as you continue to do it?
Besides having a terrific time,
It's always important.
I think I want to offer that thing to American children and adults because it's appreciated. It's the thing is a rolling double entendre. So, two different shows happening at the same time. So, the adults get one show and the kids get another show, but they appreciate, can talk about it, and that's the thing I notice about Punch is that it creates talk between children and parents. Because the kids want to know, why did Mr. Punch, why did, you know, immediately. And so the parents have to sort of flounder in their psyches to come up with some kind of reasonable answer.
When you talk about the shows bringing together children and parents to talk about an art form, it's very similar to what Henson did with his work, with Sesame Street and his other creations.
Yeah.
Why is that so rewarding?
Those joys that are inherent in doing something like this as a child, of sitting on your bed and talking as any child would to a doll, only it's okay. And, you know, and that started so early when I was sort of 3 and 4 were the first shows that I saw during the war in New York and Brooklyn. There was an Italian troupe that got stuck there because of the war. And they performed on the lawns and gardens in front of the Brooklyn Museum. And they did some incredible things. And they were very large marionettes. And that just, of course, creates, you know, this mental fervor. And it just, that level of excitement is just inherent in the process for me. It sounds silly that I'm sitting there working on a puppet or sculpting or something, and I'm experiencing many of those same joys that I experienced as a child, sort of not just redone, but revived, the same feeling, not a new feeling, the same feeling. gets brought up again inside my head. Yeah, I guess that's it.
Mike McCormick, thank you so much for coming and talking with us.
It was an absolute pleasure.